So this is what I was sharing with you earlier, that as we speak, as I speak with before you, there's a large asteroid approaching the Earth. No, pero it's not, not really going to hit us, but it would just pass by the Earth, and it's the largest for this year. So this is very parang historical, no? Parang kung titingnan natin yung mga nangyari, the brown out, and and it happened when you're reading Ephesians, no? Yung there's a mention of the evil one. So talagang I think he doesn't want you to hear what I will have to say, because I would keep on emphasizing the God's love for us, no? Parang from the very beginning kasi, the way I understand it is, inisip niya na talaga yung redemption, no? Parang maganda nga yung prelude to the Lenten season or the Holy Week. Anyway, so that's what's happening, and today is also the vernal equinox, so equal day and night, no? So this is very special day. Okay, so and let's continue. Sabi dito sa 1 Peter 3:15, sabi diyan, but sanctify the Lord God in your hearts, and be ready always to give an answer to every man that asketh you reason for the hope that is in you, with meekness and fear. Okay? So as I mentioned, pwedeng i-relate dun sa mission vision nyo na parang may discipleship, and that's part of being ready, no? Parang if someone would ask you about faith and it concerns science, for instance, you have to be ready to always give an answer. Okay? And although there's a standard here, you have to be with meekness, it has to be with love, and with fear, meaning you don't take it lightly. It has to be taken seriously. You have to really prepare for that, but with love, with meekness. Okay? And this is what I was sharing with you. No, parang very quickly, there are groups in the Philippines right now. You could just meron silang website, no? And as of yesterday, this is the number. More than 73,000 followers and likers. And this is what can be found in their site. No, a man without a God is still a man, but a God without man is nothing. So can you see the abomination that's prevalent there? And you also have the atheist movement of the Philippines, and with that followers, and then we have Ateos Filipinas. So I presented this to give you a background that there's a challenge out there. If you're planning to communicate or to influence the community, therefore you have to be aware that there are groups right now who are trying to influence other people as well, not to believe in God. And what should be our action then? Okay, so I hope that would be a challenge for all of you. Okay, so according to Richard Dawkins, he's a very popular scientist. He is the author of the book The Blind Watchmaker. Sabi dito, faith is the great cop-out, the great excuse to evade the need to think and evaluate evidence. Faith is belief in spite of, even perhaps because of, the lack of evidence. So in other words, pag wala kang ebidensya, gagamitin mo na lang yung faith. Okay? But I would counter this. I haven't said it earlier, but right now with the advances in science, we learn about dark matter even, But dark matter, because they don't interact with light, no, you cannot see them. Okay? So it's very difficult, therefore, to prove that they exist because you cannot see them. But of course, there are other ways that you could sort of make sense of that. They make sense of that and to prove that they exist. But seeing is not one of those. No. So therefore, that is a counter to what Richard Dawkins is saying. Okay. Now, share this. Do you believe in evolution? The question is, what evolution? I think I expound on this already. Okay, this is what I'm sharing with you earlier, yung Cambrian Explosion. Now, if you're confronted with questions, kung may classmate kayo, for instance, that was asking you, bakit hindi ka naniniwala sa evolution? that's our lesson in biology, and most scientists believe that anyway. Then you throw them this question also about the Cambrian explosion, because as I mentioned, I believe in evolution, but the microevolution is not the evolution espoused by Charles Darwin, which is the macroevolution, like from simple organism to more complex organism, like the dinosaurs evolving into birds through the Archaeopteryx. So there's a transition organism. Okay, so I don't believe macro evolution, but I believe in microevolution. And we, having been exposed to pandemic, we know that because may variant to na nga yung COVID, no? So parang organisms change depending on their environment, no? Yung interaction sila sa other organisms, they change, but they don't usually change to another organism. So it's between the same species. So yung Cambrian explosion is a blow to Darwinian evolution, because about 500, kasi a Cambrian is, and the geologic time scale is about mga 500 million years ago. By then, halos kompleto na, 50 to 80% of the phyla are there. We're there. So ibig sabihin, parang all of a sudden, parang magic, they just appeared, no? So it's totally different from what was espoused by Darwin, di ba? Na parang from simple, so para siyang tree na nag-change and then something like that. But what we see in the fossil record is that there are stasis, there are instances na hindi nag-change yung organism, and then all of a sudden may nag-appear na lang. So that's creation, di ba? So creation is something more visible, but since science has been, sort of the philosophy, which is naturalism, has always been there. There's a tendency to preserve the sort of tradition, but recently, more scientists, particular physicists, even biologists, are coming into terms with the fact that there is a creator, because you cannot deny the fact that if you look at how things are being placed properly, then it could not just be simply a coincidence, no? Parang ganyan. So even Simon Conway Morris, evolutionary biologist, said that he agonized over the fact of Cambrian explosion. So even himself, he said, has difficulty with that. And this is what I share with you. See, Charles Darwin in his book, Origin of the Species, it says there, sabi dito, to the question why we do not find rich fossiliferous deposits belonging to these assumed earliest periods prior to the Cambrian system, I can give no satisfactory answer. So he was hoping that along the way, some researchers would find a solution. Okay. However, it's still a challenge even up to this time. So if we follow the Darwinian evolution, then you have to be confronted with the fact of the Cambrian explosion. So if you have friends, you throw that to them, because Cambrian explosion, you could research about it anywhere. So you Google nyo or things like that. So parang you engage them in that kind of argument, and even say that Charles Darwin himself had difficulty with that. Okay, and this is si Charles Richard Dawkins, the blind watchmaker. This is his book. Ito rin yung sinabi niya. And we find many of them already in the advanced state of evolution. The very first time they appear, it is as though they were just planted there without any evolutionary history. So he himself acknowledged the Cambrian explosion, that about 500,000 years ago, nag-appear na lang sila. Okay, so this is a proof that there's a creator. Okay. So I'll shift now to, that is more biological. I'll shift now to my field, which is geology. And I got some influence from this guy. He's a pastor, but he's also an astrophysicist. And he founded Reasons to Believe. Okay, so you have reasons.org. You could just visit that. And he published a book recently, Improbable Earth. So much of I would like to share with you today, although he's not a geologist, much of his discussion is about geology. That's why I would like to share this with you. So this is what I shared with you. So Revelation 7:9. Before me was a great multitude that no one could count, from every nation, tribe, people, and language. So for it to be realized, there should be a lot of people, no? Parang if you kill them by pandemic or by war, by nuclear explosion and things like that, it cannot be true, this revelation. But what the Lord is doing right now, because he's mindful, as I told you, from the very beginning, he's focused on redemption. So should be many people who would be redeemed. Okay. So and we have scriptures for that. So 2 Timothy 2:9 says that, who had saved us and called us with a holy calling, not according to our works, but according to his own purpose and grace, which was given us in Christ Jesus before the world began. So yung saved us, so salvation, kumbaga si God, nakikita niya na yun eh. Because if you're following physics, and we are just limited to 4 dimensions, we have the 3 dimensions plus time. But the physics is telling us that there are several dimensions, and we could actually to the point of having like 10. And God is, in control of all those. So he is omniscient, he is omnipresent, he's transcendent. No, parang I think that's a better term, transcendent. He transcends. So he saw that, and it's also says in Titus 1:2, in hope of eternal life, which God that cannot lie promised before the world began. So in other words, from the very beginning, mindful na agad si God of redemption. And pretty much that's what he's doing right now. Para maging ma-accomplish yun, he's actually preserving life as we know it. Okay? And that's basically what's happening right now. So this is what I would like to share with you. The conditions for it to have billions to be redeemed are present as of the moment. Na-share ko kanina yung middle age sun, yung end of the ice age cycle, extreme climate stability, and no nearby supernova. So ito yung solar luminosity. So yung age ng sun as of the moment is 4.5 billion years. Ang total age of the sun is 10 billion years. So pag 10 billion years, mawawala na yung sun natin. It will become into a white dwarf, and it could possibly become a supernova or some that sort. So anyway, so initial life of the sun, we see this rising, yung luminosity. We are this point. So as you notice, that is increasing in terms of luminosity. So in other words, painit yung sun natin, but it's not that hot compared to when it is much older, no? So that's what's happening. And in terms of the solar flare, when it's very young, mataas yung solar flare activity niya. When it's at the middle age, low yung activity niya. And what's happening with the solar activity, it's increased X radiation, there's increased UV radiation. It affects life, and it could actually make extinct some organisms. It could even cause cancer. So we are right now in the stage where it's very conducive to life. Okay. Now, I mentioned earlier that the sun is becoming hot. Okay. Of course, we know now we have global warming. Now, to balance this, what the Lord did is we have what we call right now an ice in our Earth's history, and it's a fairly recent phenomenon. Especially the ice age cycle. It's only at this stage where we have the ice age cycle. We have ice before, pero not an ice age cycle. So therefore, before parang hindi pa nagpo-flourish yung life na as organisms. And I think, of course, we now 65 billion years ago, parang tinitignan ko nga when I was preparing for this, oo nga, si Lord talagang prepare niya yung life ng mga humans. Why? Because 65 million years ago, he sent a Mars-sized object on Earth so that the dinosaurs becomes extinct. Can you imagine the dinosaurs living with human beings? So mauubos yung mga human beings. So he has to do that, no? Para makikita mo pa rin yung hand ni God in terms of paving the way for the redemption. Okay, so this is the Ice Age cycle. So it's a fairly 800,000 years ago that we have the Ice Age cycle. Pero nandito tayo ngayon, we have 10% ice. So this is recent. And then 20% ice pag-ship natin uli sa Ice Age. Now, nasa interglacial tayo. Okay? Kaya you notice that we only have 10% ice. Walang masyadong yellow. And we're actually moving towards another Ice Age. Now, iniisip nyo, di ba global warming nga tayo? Bakit sinasabi mo, Sir Mike, na magkakaroon ng Ice Age? Actually, in history, that is basically what's happening. Kaya mapuput natin into context why the Earth is warming. Okay, may global warming na nangyayari because we are approaching another interglacial period. So kasi in the past, what happens is if the temperature increased by about 3 degrees centigrade, what happens is nagse-set in agad ang Ice Age. Okay. So how could you explain that? Umiinit nga. So what's happening is if you could think with me, if the water, because of it's very hot, is heated, then there's evaporation. Okay, when it evaporates, okay, and it reach a certain portion dun sa isang area, then it could actually precipitate not as water but as ice. Okay, so therefore it could trigger an Ice Age. Okay, so that's how it operates. So, but in the previously, that's how yun yung parameter nila. When it reach a 3 degrees Celsius na increase in the world temperature, bigla na nagsiset in yung another Ice Age. When I say Ice Age, in the context of the Ice Age cycle, nagti-20% yung ice. Okay, so yun lang yung ibig sabihin nun. Okay, so that's long before there are ice ages then na nagpa-fluctuate yung Earth's temperature. Pero recently, for your information, do you notice this line na parang medyo stable? This is about 9,000 years lang. Okay? So yes, ito medyo erratic, pero it's about 9,000 years, naging stable na siya. Okay? Can you imagine, we are in a state na parang yung temperature is mataas, tapos may Ice Age tayo. How could we explain even the Ice Age? Bakit may Ice Age? And what's happening is God used geology to accomplish that. Okay. So that's me. This is a picture of Palawan in Binalagoan, Munti when I was doing research related kasi sa climate change yung aking research before. It's about sea level change. So in the past, because of the glaciation, because when there's a interglacial and then glacial, yung sea level tumataas din. Okay? That's why we're looking for places where there are indicators of past sea level. So in Palawan, because it's relatively stable, yung limestone dyan, we could actually tell. So you could nakikita nyo itong mga outline na yan. It indicator of the past sea level. So it indicates the sea level previously as a consequence of ice formation and then ice turning into water. Okay. So part of that, ito yung mga nangyari para ma-form yung recent na you notice that there's a ice cycle. You notice that there's a Antarctica separated from Australia recently and then sa South America because they used to be connected. Okay? Yung na-isolate yung Antarctica, what happens is it created a current there. And that particular current is able to absorb carbon dioxide because there's a current underneath and then it absorbs carbon dioxide. So it became a carbon dioxide sink. And what happens when we get carbon dioxide from the air? We know that carbon dioxide is a very good greenhouse gas. So yung temperature bumababa. Okay? And Antarctica right now, because of this position here, is now covered with ice. And as a consequence of that, it's able to reflect sunlight. Diba I told you that earlier that the sun is in the middle age na siya. So medyo mainit siya. But the best way to fend off the radiation from the sun is through the albedo effect. Because this is covered with ice, Therefore, yung heat coming from radiation from the sun is now transported into space. Okay, a portion of that. Okay, that's what's happening. Another also, this Greenland, okay, because of geology, it moved upward, and as a consequence of that moving upward, that particular location met with a hotspot. Yung hotspot is pretty much like the how volcanoes in Hawaii are formed. So medyo nagiging elevated siya. And because of that elevation, what happened is uh, because na-elevate siya ng husto, it became now, places like Baguio, because of its elevation, lumalamig siya. And the further up, then cloud ice formation could form. That's basically what happened here. So we have right now, kanina, dun sa Antarctica, and now we have Greenland. And also, another event that happened is about 75 million years ago, India moved away from Madagascar and sort of collided with Eurasian plate. Now, what happened here during the collision is India tried to enter the Eurasian plate. And in the process, it sort of uplifted. Nagkaroon ng amalgamation. And what happened, therefore, is na-form yung mga highest elevation natin. Nandyan kasi yung Tibetan Plateau, the Himalayas. And what do you know about that place? I told you kanina, pag medyo mataas siya, then there's a formation of ice. And that's actually a very effective, in terms of albedo effect, because it has ice, way for us to, for the sun's radiation not to penetrate the earth much, because it's reflected back by the ice here. And the good thing about India's the ice from this region is that it is near the equator. Naman yung radiation from the equator compared to the poles, mas malaki yung area. And therefore, what happened is nagiging efficient siya to get the heat out of the earth, by reflection to the from the ice. So we have like Greenland, we have Antarctica, of course may effect din yung sa Arctic, and yung Eurasian plate. Okay? This particular area sa Himalayas. And right now, for your information, continuously tumataas ang Himalayas. But since it's also subducting, what happened is may fault din dyan, kaya pwedeng magkaroon din ng earthquake. Okay, so it's quite interesting that the Lord has placed all these things so that we have this ice cycle. And nakita nyo kanina yung 9,000 years na pretty stable yung temperature natin. Okay? So what I'm saying, having said all this, is parang the Lord is paving the way, fine-tuning everything so that life would flourish. Okay. And another thing din na masusurprise kayo is these are the recent supernova. Yung pang-apat, diba, yung supernova. Now, what are supernova? These are exploding stars. Now, bakit hindi natin kailangan na may malapit na supernova? Because during that explosion, it's able to sort of, when it explodes, it would sort of bombard a lot of radiation, killing many organisms. So it could annihilate life on Earth if it's very near. Okay? So can you imagine that kind of protection also in recent supernova, 44,000 years, 37,000 years, medyo malalapit. Pero of course yung life natin as we know it, wala naman dito yung human beings. But historical supernova, this is historical, meaning during the lifetime ng mga tao. Pero you notice kanina, nasa 500, 600, ngayon mas lumayo. We are now, interestingly, at this particular age, malalayo in supernova. So what I'm saying is, bottom line, with that just four, that I presented, the Lord has been protecting us. He is committed to preserve us. He's committed to redemption. Kaya nga parang ang suggestion ko sana sa inyo, and that's actually when I was preparing for this, that's actually the attitude that I have. No, parang I really want to spend the morning just praising Him and thanking him for him being mindful of me even before he created the universe. So parang he knew that I would at some point in time I would come to know the Lord. Parang nasa naisip parang I believe that nasa isip niya na ako ni Lord. And what he's doing right now is actually preserving life, you know, and actually something to be thankful for. Kasi I don't really think that those are coincidences. Imagine all those geologic things that are happening. Noon, when I was studying geology, I don't see it that way. No? Parang natural lang. Now, when I was contemplating on it, that, oh nga, no, bakit nangyari yon, and its relationship with the ice ages, kasi especially sa akin, because that's my research. Sea level change and climate change is my research. Parang we only have that portion, no, na parang for us to really share the gospel. And one thing, it was also shared by you, Ross, is that as mentioned, only few years na lang, no? Because we never can tell. There could be other candidates for a nearby supernova to explode. We don't know. Betelgeuse is one, and so in other words, it will not be forever that we would have life. But the Lord is giving us this time, no, para for us to flourish. And what should be our response, therefore, with that? We have to share the gospel to people, because we have just parang in-stretch na nga ni Lord, no? Parang nagpo-flourish yung life so that we could have opportunity to share to people. And you could always go back to my earlier presentation about atheism in the Philippines. No, parang ang daming atheists, and it's growing in numbers because they're using social media. That I think would be a challenge for all of us. So I hope that in your breakout groups, it may, of course, punta na yata kayo doon sa breakout groups, but basically that's what I wanted you to do in those breakout groups na, or yung aking reflection questions that I submitted yesterday, that I want you to be mindful of your action points. Now what? Like, for example, you know that there are challenges out there that ginagamit yung social media to promote atheism. And what are we to do about that? Are we happy? Or are we going to apply, it's a command actually, itong 1 Peter 3:15, but sanctify the Lord God in your hearts and be ready always to give an answer to every man that asketh you reason of the hope that is in you with meekness and fear. So if your classmates, it doesn't have to be like them asking questions. You have to be ready, di ba? We have in season or out of season, we have to be ready to share our faith um, to people around us, even to our family if they're not yet saved. So that's basically what I would like to share with you. Uh, parang if you think that I am ministering to you, I would like to thank Joy Fellowship also, because when I was preparing this, parang it ministered to me as well. Parang ngayon, parang mas na, because yung sa geology ko kasi, parang mas nagiging, na-appreciate ko siya. Why? Because, oo nga pala, yung mga nangyayari na yon, yung mga plate tectonics na ganyan, ginamit pala yun ni Lord para i-preserve yung kanyang mga minamahal na tao, no? Simply because from the very beginning, He is mindful of me, mindful of you. He's mindful of redeeming us from the very beginning. I think that, to me, that's very powerful, na parang sa akin kasi parang ang sarap ng pakiramdam na inisip ka ni Lord from the very beginning. And that's my plan. Doon nga sinadjust ko nga doon na parang during the Lenten season, no? Parang something to reflect about how the Lord is not only given His life to you, but from the very beginning pala, mindful siya sa'yo. And He wanted to preserve you and the humankind, although for a certain period of time, because we know that the world would end. He will give a new earth, as he said, no. And ang suggestion ko lang is, wag tayo masyadong antagonistic sa science. Science could be a tool for us to share to other people. Because the moment that you say mga something negative about yung mga scientists or mga ganyan, I think what happened is nagka-create ulit ng conflict. And of course, if you would like to pursue medicine, di ba? Parang uh, what would you do? Kung if you believe in hindi ka na magiging doktor because it has science, di ba? Hindi naman ganoon. And what I think is we really have a role to play. I don't think it's an accident you're hearing this message. The Lord may put people around you who may need this message, who may need to know that uh, the Lord is mindful of them. That really, if they cling on science or evolution, that's actually a philosophical view. It's not really a more scientific, because like scientism, yung paniniwala ni Charles Dawkins na if it's not science, then wala na. So yun yung scientism. It's not scientific, but it's scientism. Yun yung paniniwala ng iba. But Christians may use science, and we don't have question and answer portion, obviously, but if you have questions and related to what I said, nandiyan naman si Kristen or si Lalaine, you could actually ask them for my contact details, and I would like to uh, even share with you yung mga natutunan ko dun sa field trip ko sa pagdoing ng sa climate change, no? Parang it's just so limited at times. If you have questions dun sa mga shinare ko, you may contact with me. But since I don't have much time, just like you to, yung pinaka takeaway sana is yon, parang I hope that you will be more worshipful of a God who from the very beginning has thought of you and loved you. And kaya medyo naiiyak nga ako kasi pag naiisip ko yon, na from the very beginning inisip na pala ako ni Lord, and um, you know and what should be my response, and I would like to share him also to the people around me. So I think that's a bottom line na gusto kong i-share sa inyo. I hope that you'll be ready. So sa discipleship, be ready always to give an answer. And you should give it with meekness, meaning with love. Okay? Huwag tayo masyadong antagonistic dun sa mga atheistic, mga atheists. Then, we have to show them love also. Kasi ang bottom line, when I was reading what they presented is, they're not really about, it's not so much with science, but how Christians are living their lives. Parang isa more critic, Christian ka pala pero ba't ganyan yung yung buhay mo? So I think if we are more loving, if we show them that this is the way to live a godly life, I think they will be attracted to the gospel. I think the reason why we have atheists is because they're so much disappointed with Christians who claim themselves as Christians, and yet yung purity and yung holiness are not seen in their lives. So I hope that through Joy Fellowship, you will be more impactful, as you mentioned in your mission vision, dun sa society niyo. So I would like to share I would just thank you for this, kasi because of this parang mas kumbaga nabuhayan ako, kasi parang iba yung iniisip mo, yung goodness ni Lord, that from the very beginning he thought of you. So I think yun lang. I think sobra na siguro yung time ko, and thank you for listening.